Oh my god, Arkhan has no chill. Dude's already headless and he's still combo breaking that ass. Welcome to Warpstone Mine. It's been a while. One of my favorite maps from Warhammer 1. Not sure I've ever done a replay on it for Warhammer 2, and if I did, it was a really long time ago. Today we've got the Followers of Nagash and Arkhan the Black, moonwalking like Michael Jackson with his Necrotype buddy, leading a horde of Crypt Ghouls and Sneaky Snakes as Gobbo Slayer looks to stop a Bretonnian crusade dead in its tracks, while Morgiana Le Fay seeks vengeance for her brutal murder in the resurrection of Nagash. This time, it's personal, with Zach B. Sane commanding the Knights of the Lady. Richard the Lionheart is with us in spirit, his anti-large crusaders and the Grail Guardians of the Fae, the most powerful cav on the field, and they've got their work cut out for them as they look to send the undead legions back to the underworld. So, for the Tomb Kings and the Followers of Nagash, XMT Gobbo Slayer going for a pretty interesting build. He's got a Hierotitan in the middle of his formation, and this is his command center, his fallback point if everything else goes tits up. Spirit Leech going to be great for deleting enemy cav models before the Lore of Life can come into play, and direct damage is probably going to be his best tool for dealing with Bretonnian Knights. And then there's the Mortarch of Sacrament with Liber Mortis, Book of Nagash, the cooldown reduction from his staff, Fate of Buna, Soul Blight, and Doom and Darkness, and he's on foot, so we get to see that sexy kill animation at least a couple times this battle. Crypt Ghouls are surprisingly good here. They're going to swarm at the feet of that mighty Hierotitan. They can mulch most Bretonnian infantry and have the speed to run down the archers as well, which is a pretty big deal. But you got to be careful with them, because they will get pancaked by cav charges. Frontally or from the rear, it matters not. They will get destroyed if they get charged, which is why the Necropolis Knights are there, to block charges and help deal with the mobile threats. Cool thing you can do with them is you can bring the normal variant without halberds, because they have better overall stats and are a bit cheaper, and then give them Overcast Shaft's Incantation of Cursed Blades if they get into a fight versus large units, but halberds probably a bit of a safer choice. Shifting over to Zach B. Sane and Bretonnia, Holy Water rains down upon us all. Paladin and Pegasus combo on Overwatch, granting Guardian Aura for the Fae. He's got a 12 bonus versus large, so definitely a good choice here. And then for Morgiana herself, Earthblood, Regrowth, Mist of the Lady, Favor of the Fae, Chalice of Potions, standard fare for my fair lady, riding her Unicorn Silveron, who's kind of a dick, like the one in the Cabin in the Woods movie, runs out of containment and just guts the first dude it sees. Steer clear of that thing. Now, contrary to what the patch notes said, Holy Water Trebs still deal friendly fire damage, especially to cav. It's just that the explosion doesn't deal any friendly fire damage. It's the projectile itself that will kill your own troops. Not something you want to learn the hard way, so you don't want to be firing anywhere near your own cav blobs. And speaking of cav blobs, Knights of Lionhearted and Grail Guardians are the elite of the elite. They synergize incredibly well with the Fae. Her heals, her plus 44 melee attack buff. I like this build from Bretonnia. It's a pretty good one. Gonna be tough to deal with for Arkhan the Black and the Followers of Nagash, I think. But Arkhan has experience with killing the Fay Enchantress. He's done it before. Let's see if he can do it again. Now, as these sneaky snakes back up, they're going to take... You know what? I'm not gonna edit that out. A long time ago, during the Rome 2 days, I did a series called How Indie Pride Starts His Total War Commentaries, and it was all my bloopers while commentating. I'd say that happens probably once per video, so we're going to leave that in for the lulz. But you might have noticed, those Blessed Field Trebuchets deal enough damage to kill a Demi or a Necropolis Knight model every time they hit. One hit equals one dead Necro Serpent. That's huge. That's a really big deal, because those are really important units that the Necrotypes would love to be able to heal. That restore is a really nice way to get them back into the fight or turn a cav fight, but if they lose a model, that healing will mean nothing. Nothing whatsoever. So that's pretty cool. I mean, fire at those Crypt Ghouls or the Skeleton Spearmen all day long, but at the end of the day, they are not particularly high-value infantry. Interestingly enough, there are no Tomb Guard halberds on the field, so they might be better off firing at the Hierotitan or the Monstrous Cav to help turn the fights there. And the Fae will be sucking the life out of those Crypt Ghouls with her Mist of the Lady, her Mortis Engine effect as the Knights of the Lionhearted charge forward. Very nice move to move those Crypt Ghouls out of the way of that charge behind the screen of those Skeleton Spearmen. Make sure they do not get charged, because if they do, they will melt. And speaking of melting, these poor, poopy Bretonnian peasants, they never had a chance. The Crypt Ghouls are just going to rack up so many kills against them, break them almost immediately, but the Knights of Lionhearted will come in from the flank and try to equalize those numbers a bit as those trebuchets continue firing 90 kilogram projectiles well over 300 meters. Truly an elegant weapon for a more civilized age. Hierotitan turning battle pilgrims into paste, and Arkhan the Black, he's styling on them now, boy, getting into the thick of it, into the middle of a bunch of battle pilgrims, and ultra combo. Feel the embrace of death. Taste his vomit, enjoy the bite of his sword, and here, he's gonna shove it down your throat for good measure. I mean, CA, please, just give us more sync kills, dude. They make me so happy. That's amazing. That's actually amazing. They're gonna do an alley-oop combo. Necrotect whipped off the dude's head, and Arkhan's gonna continue slaughtering him. Just stop! He's already dead. None of that was required. But we liked it anyway. So, already, the Bretonnian front lines are buckling. They're breaking under the assault, but they've invested a lot on the right flank here. 2 of their elite heavy cav units over on this side, and those Holy Water Trebs still firing in to the Necroserpents and trying to take them down. Doing a pretty good job of it. They've landed 3 or 4 shots already. That is 3 or 4 models that will not get any kills this battle, and you cannot bring them back. Over on this side, there, the Followers of Nagash have a pretty decent engagement. Crypt Ghouls and the Necropolis Knights together might be able to deal with those Grail Guardians in a frontal attack, but they have very high melee defense, and they're probably going to get healed. But Soul Blight going down, lower their weapon damage, and their armor might be enough to shift it in the Tomb King's favor. But the Hierotitan striding right down the center, trying to terror route all that stuff, and looks like Spirit Leech going down on the cavalry, and Fay Enchantress as well. That's a 1-2 punch that is very nasty for Bretonnian cavalry to deal with, especially with the Spirit Leech. Earthblood and Regrowth will do nothing to stop them from losing models under that spell. Now, Fay Enchantress, on the other hand, deals much more damage overall, but it doesn't delete models from the game. Typically, it spreads it out more evenly, and that means that Earthblood and Regrowth can heal them up better. So we'll see how that goes, but it does look like the Knights of the Lionhearted have already taken a tremendous amount of damage from that Fay Enchantress. See if the Lore of Life can bring them back into the fight. And Skeleton Summons from Arkhan, trying to tie down the Trebuchets and the Peasant Bowmen as a Chalice of Potions rains down from the Fay Enchantress from above, and it is going to flatten those Skeleton Spearmen. Will not crumble them right away, but certainly going to make that a little bit more of a reasonable fight for the Bretonnians. The Necropolis Knights, they are into the cookie jar now, and Goblin Slayer doing a very good job of shutting down those high-value range targets. The Peasant Bowmen and the Trebuchets both need to die, because once they're dead, the Bretonnians are going to have a huge issue dealing with that Hierotitan, which has taken no damage whatsoever. This is an important fight, though. Soul Blight on everything. The Hierotitan not where it needs to be. You want him in the middle of that cav blob, supported by Arkhan, supported by the Liber Mortis and the Summons, who are kind of just aimlessly shuffling about right now, not doing a whole lot. Shem's Burning Gaze, gonna hit the flank, kill 1 or 2 models, but it's honestly not a very good spell right now. You really bring it for the Spirit Leech and the tankiness, but take a look at this. Everything in the back lines for Bretonnia is dead, or running, at the very least. Of course, some of that stuff will likely come back. It doesn't look like the Followers of Nagash have a lot of fast movers to run them down for good, which might be the issue. Maybe a couple Dire Wolves or a couple Fell Bats would be very useful here to just run them off the map and make sure that the Trebuchets don't come back online again. The Fae, with her Mortis effect and her life magic, Gairan flowing through her and blasting things apart. So too is the Bretonnian Laser Eyes from that Hierotitan, and these peasants have no chance whatsoever. Ushabti lifting some of them up in the air and bisecting them as he continues to stomp them into the ground, into mush. And this is looking pretty even so far. But the Cav Blob is without a doubt the biggest threat for the Followers of Nagash, and Zach Bisane is doing a very good job of keeping them all grouped up and running over these low armor targets. And honestly, the Skeleton Spearmen can't really do anything against Bretonnian cavalry. Not like Grail Guardians. Their melee defense and armor is too high. They are not going to do enough damage. Arkhan the Black will try to kill as many of the infantry as he can, but it really comes down to his spells and his summons. And right now, it looks like the Followers of Nagash are having some issues dealing with the cycle charging, and they need to get everything together. Maybe a little bit too spread out right now, and that means those Crypt Ghouls are going to be victims. They're just going to get victimized by all the cycle charging, and pretty soon they are going to crumble into dust. But they do have a beautiful surround off on this Paladin. Zach Bisane needs to get his cavalry into that fight and crumble those Necroserpents for good. If he doesn't, he's probably going to lose the Paladin, but it's looking real tanky right now. And all the high value stuff for Bretonnia is on this side of the battlefield, which is important because that means every time you overcast Earthblood, it's going to hit all his cav units, counteract the Soul Blight, and start shifting things a little bit in his favor. With the Hierotitan build, especially against Bretonnia, you want to keep things high and tight. Use that Gundam as your fallback point, the anchor to your Death Ball, and keep everything else nearby. See, the Trebs are coming back online now, which could be bad news bears. And because that Hierotitan is really slow, only 32 speed, if you spread the field a lot, it leaves your Necroserpents and your Crypt Ghouls isolated, where the Hierotitan can't easily come in and support. Looks like he's getting the idea now. He's getting into that Death Ball and surrounding his huge Gundam with a lot of troops, but the Necroserpents are charging in and trying to shut down these Trebs for good. It looks like they might be able to. The first model just dropped, just blew up, but the Hierotitan is taking a tremendous amount of damage, actually, from those Holy Water Trebuchets, which you don't really think of that as a counter to single entity monsters, but it's a huge hitbox, and they deal well over 400 damage a projectile, so it's doing pretty good work. And even with all that armor, the Hierotitan is starting to feel the pain. So the Necroserpents just crumble for good. Looks like another Chalice of Potions about to come down, but this one might deal more friendly fire damage than it does to the Tomb Kings. They're going to get out of the way, or they're actually going to... That's one way to get out of the way. You can just crumble out of existence. Yeah, it'll kill a few battle programs, but kind of negligible friendly fire. And this is where the Hierotitan wants to be. Yeah, those are bonus for large knights, but really only a handful of knights are going to be able to attack him at a single time. Unfortunately, though, the Hierotitan has lost almost all of his support. There are no skeletons nearby, and with the Paladin gooning up on him and the knights getting a full surround off, suddenly things are maybe not looking so hot for the Followers of Nagash and the Tomb Kings. And with those catapults, geez, those aren't catapults. Screaming Skull catapults are undead abominations. The trebuchets are, as I said, a more elegant weapon for a more civilized age. The trebuchets are firing in and wrecking that Hierotitan. Another Fate of Buna goes down, but it looks like it's going to be too little, too late, even with the Liber Mortis and that plus 44% physical resist. It's not going to help because almost all the damage coming in right now is magical damage, and the Fay is going to get her vengeance against the Hierotitan, and more importantly, against Arkhan the Black. The curse goes down, tries to nuke a few of those knights into oblivion, but it matters not. Crumbles into dust, smashes a few unfortunate peasants on the way down. But at the end of the day, the Fay Enchantress and the forces of Carcassonne will take the battlefield. A very interesting one. Very well played to Zach B. Sane and Bretonnia, and an interesting build from the Followers of Nagash and Gobbo Slayer. And I appreciate the thematics from both players. Very cool builds. Very cool builds. And seeing those Crypt Ghouls go to work, I mean, look at those. 132 kills, 84 kills. They munched a lot of those Bretonnian peasants, which was pretty fun. So I think if you're going to go for a Hierotitan build in the way that Gobbo Slayer did in this battle, I think you need to mess around with the deployment a bit and make sure that, like I said, you keep it high and tight. I think if you're going to have that in the center of your formation, the Hierotitan suffers from a lot of the problems that Giants do and other of the big single entity monsters that are slow do, and that it doesn't have a lot of mobility. Sure, it has amazing weapon strength, it has very high armor, it has very good stats, but if it can't get on target, and the targets you want to kill here are, of course, those knights who are very fast, then you have an issue. So the way you kind of mitigate that issue is you make sure that when the knights come in, they have to engage near the Hierotitan. The best way to do that is keep your formation pretty compact and all surrounding the big statue in the center. And so when those knights charge into melee, the Hierotitan, even though it has low speed, only has to take 2-3 strides. Then it's into the knights, can get an attack off with that magic damage, with that fire damage, with that 550 weapon strength or whatever it is. Yeah, he's going to kill 2-3 models every single time he attacks, and that's a great way to start shifting things in your favor. Obviously, the Lore of Life was used very well this game by Zach B. Sane. We saw tons of Spirit Leeches and Fate of Bunas, and we saw, I think, those Knights of Lighthearted drop to about 1/3 HP. By the end of the game, they were back up to 2/3 because a lot of the models had not died. And I think if those Necropolis Knights had been kept close by that Hierotitan, you poison them, you slow them anytime they charge in, then those Grail Guardians have a much more difficult engagement. Now, yeah, sure, A couple more fell bats, a couple more dire wolves would have helped make sure the trebuchets don't come back online, would have made sure the Hierotitan didn't end up taking about half damage. I mean, up to like the last 2-3 minutes of the game, it had taken no damage whatsoever. All the damage that got racked up was near the end when the trebuchet peasants decided to come back and start firing in. So if those had been gone for good, might have been one the Followers of Nagash could have pulled out. But ended up being pretty exciting to watch and very interesting builds from both players. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you next time. Peace out.